If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain how I found out about this. It's free. It's on your app store. There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right now from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Please, I urge you, don't waste another minute. I wasted 3 years. I attended all kinds of events to learn all the steps. I was so confused, and it was right here. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Do it now. Today is Wednesday, March 17, 2021, St. Patrick's Day in the United States and elsewhere. For the Heart and Home Podcast, I'm your host, Sabah Fakhoury. A few headlines before we get into what's happening. ABC News reports Moderna, the maker of one of 3 COVID vaccines currently authorized for use in the United States, announced it will start testing its vaccine on children as young as 6 months old. Moderna's trial will enroll nearly 7,000 children from ages of 6 months to 12 years in the United States and Canada. In other reports, the COVID-19 vaccine boosters will become a regular part of our life for years to come.
We're going to reach 2 goals in the next 10 days. 100 million shots in people's arms. 100 million shots. And 100 million checks of $1,400 or more in people's pockets within the next 10 days. We're on the way. Help is on the way.
That was our President of the United States, Biden, and we are not done with these vaccines. And like I said, the boosters are going to be part of our life. Guess what? Guess who's home and recovering? Tiger Woods. He tweeted, quote, "Happy to report that I'm back home and continuing my recovery." So he tweeted that out Tuesday night, and he said, quote, "I'm grateful for the outpouring of support and encouragement that I have received over the past few weeks." So we're glad that he's home and recovering. Another person who left for his home is the Duke of Edinburgh, 99. He left hospital yesterday after a month, the BBC reported. Actually, the reporters saw him leaving the hospital before anybody even announced it. And they're like, what? We just saw him leaving. What's going on? The Duke, who retired from royal duties in 2017, returned to Windsor Castle after a 28-night stay, his longest ever in the hospital, where he underwent a successful procedure for a pre-existing heart condition. He also was in there for an infection as well. Now, of course, we all know that Prince Philip's hospital stay coincided with the former Duke and Duchess of Sussex interview with Oprah, in which allegations of racism and a lack of mental health support were leveled at the royal family. As we all know, Buckingham Palace said in a statement afterwards that the issues were concerning, and while, quote, "some recollections may vary," the matter was a family one that will be dealt with privately. So a week after the Oprah interview, Gayle King actually spoke with Prince Harry over the weekend, and she found out that he had spoken with his brother, Prince William, and his father, Prince Charles. She said on the CBS This Morning. Now, we know that Prince Harry had said that his father stopped talking to him and stopped taking his calls. So it was not just a strain between the brothers, but there was also a break in communication between him and his father. So they're talking again, and Gayle said, that really just the talks began, it's nothing real productive or anything like that. And as you know, Buckingham Palace has announced, and actually they've hired an outside law firm to look into these racism and, well, actually it was the bullying. And so I guess Harry and Meghan aren't going to be included in all that. So I don't know whether they consider them as part of the family or not, as far as when they're going to be dealing with internally and what the Queen actually meant. Maybe she was going to be, heads were going to roll at that end. Okay, well, guess who else kind of chimed in? The former First Lady, Michelle Obama, who, when Meghan was the Duchess of Sussex, interviewed her for the guest-edited edition of British Vogue back in 2019. Well, she happened to be on NBC Today, and she was asked about the Oprah interview during her appearance. And of course, you know that she's going to respond. Mrs. Obama found it heartbreaking to hear when it is in your own family, but she wasn't surprised because, quote, race isn't a new construct in this world for people of color. Well, she went on to say that the thing I hope for and I think about this first and foremost is a family, and I pray for forgiveness and healing for them, she added, because there's nothing more important than family. And you know what? I remember and seeing a quote by Princess Diana who said, quote, family is the most important thing in the world. Now, you know, Harry's mom came from a broken home. She was devastated when her mom left, and Diana never wanted to divorce either. You know, we have to really consider the effect of divorce that has on kids. You know, they always feel like it's their fault. In other news, this week, news of the 33-year-old Sarah Everard's murder in central London sparked global outrage and brought renewed focus to a worldwide epidemic of violence against women. Here's a report from NBC 2 days ago about what happened in London, which led to bad press for Kate showing up without a mask, and she ended up getting more press than the arrests that followed. Now, that all happened on Sunday, so today's Wednesday. Here's what happened, and this is how NBC reported it.
This crime is really hitting home. Now, we're in London at one of the biggest vigils to honor Sarah Everard. Take a look. Look at that pile of flowers, the crowd of people. Since we've been here for the last 4 or 5 hours, there's been a steady stream of people. And over the weekend, thousands of people showed up right here to pay their respects to Sarah. Police moved in to clear them out. Take a look what happened next. It's the image people are talking about around the world. Police officers in London holding Patsy Stevenson down. She was one of several women cuffed over the weekend at a peaceful vigil following the death of Sarah Everard, a 33-year-old marketing executive found murdered last week, allegedly at the hands of a police officer. Over the weekend, thousands came out defying government COVID restrictions.
I think it's important for all of us to, especially as women, to show unity with Sarah.
Even Kate Middleton showing up without an entourage to pay her respects.
Nothing's being done. It's just not good enough. Sarah was just walking home. She did everything right.
She wasn't out at 4 a.m. roaming kind of sketchy streets. She was walking on a well-lit road in central London.
But that does lead to question. Even if she was drunk, even if it was later at night, this wasn't her fault. And it's not our fault, but it's constantly the onus is put on us to protect ourselves.
On March 3rd, CCTV caught Sarah Everard walking home in London around 9:30 p.m. A week later, her body found here outside of London. The suspect, an elite police officer, 48-year-old Wayne Couzens, now charged with murder.
And the reason why the killing of Sarah Everard's murder has shocked us all is because it could have been any one of us. Women have constantly been told how to keep safe, but actually the onus should be on men. It is men who are killing women. On social media, the post, "Text me when you get home," now going viral. Women all over the world sharing their stories, tweeting out their routines while walking at night, a list that looks all too familiar to so many of us. Globally, an estimated 87,000 women are killed annually. In the UK, on average, a woman is killed by a man every 3 days. And across the country, growing protests and now calls for the London police chief to step down.
I know I can speak for my people when I say this incredible strength of feeling of anger and sadness.
Now, the pressure on the police commissioner here in London is growing. The suspect, you guys, will be back in court tomorrow. And this story is only growing. There are bigger protests planned in London later today. And guys, it's going global.
Yeah, we can see that. All right, NBC's Molly Hunter live for us in London today. Thank you, Molly.
The U.S. Congress this week will reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act. And you will find more additional resources if you need them from such organizations working to bring attention to this issue with National Domestic Violence Hotline, United Nations Women, and Futures Without Violence. Meanwhile, Sharon Osbourne's troubles continue after backing Piers Morgan and his comments about Meghan Markle. Osbourne has defended herself on social media against allegations of racist behavior. And we'll play more about those clips a little later. The show, The Talk, is taking a break following heated discussions last week among Sharon Osbourne and her fellow panelists, particularly Cheryl Underwood, springing from Oprah's interview with Prince Harry and Meghan, the former Duchess of Sussex. Okay, so, I guess Sharon just doesn't know what she did wrong, and she thinks that she should defend herself because all she's doing is sticking up for her friend, Piers, and she didn't see him as being racist, and then she was being accused of being racist, and she was like, oh my God, what is going on here? And, she did apologize a few days, as I mentioned, but what's going on is that various outlets are reporting over the weekend that the show was being paused for an internal CBS investigation into the emotional on-air exchange between Sharon Osbourne and Cheryl Underwood. That's a tongue twister, guys. So this whole issue about who's racist, who's not, trying to explain to Sharon Osbourne, that look at just because you come out and say, freedom of speech for somebody, but we see him as being racist. And she's like, well, tell me, educate me. What was racist about him expressing his own views? And that's what he gets paid for. So Sharon Osbourne couldn't see Cheryl's point of view of trying to explain to her that the whole thing of sticking up for a friend is considered racist. And it just kind of got a little bit out of control. Now, Piers Morgan is accusing bullies of forcing Sharon Osbourne into an apology, which she did, after the panelists on The Talk got into heated discussions this week regarding whether he's a racist for disparaging the former, Duchess. Now, as I said, he has a history with Meghan. He's been accused of bashing her and saying she bashed the the royal family. Whatever. Are you taking notes on this? You probably should, because it's gotten a bit complicated. Now, Sharon Osbourne did issue an apology for her emotional behavior on the show, saying, quote, I panicked, felt blindsided, got defensive, and allowed my fear and horror of being accused of being racist take over. There are very few things that hurt my heart more than racism, so to feel associated with that spun me fast. Exclamation point, end quote. Whoa. Okay, so she's upset. The Black co-host is upset. The Black community is now getting upset. And everybody's talking about this and what's going on. Now, Piers Morgan explained why he decided to quit the morning show, Good Morning Britain, in a post that he actually had 140,000 people like. He wrote a handwritten note, and he in it he says, quote, "This is a 2-hour trash-a-thon of our royal family, of the monarchy, of everything the Queen has worked so hard for, and it's all being done as Prince Philip lies in hospital." Well, okay, so Prince Philip came home yesterday. This all happened a few days ago. So they trash everybody. They basically make out the entire royal family a bunch of white supremacists by dropping this race bombshell. They didn't name which one it is. Well, that's true. I mean, you're going to make an accusation. You've got to say who it is. But they didn't do that. So that's why, the whole incident kind of got blown out of proportion, is that, he was trying to hold Meghan accountable and saying, look, if you're going to drop a bombshell like that, you got to name the sources. You just don't throw something out there like that. So who is it? Who is it? If you really know, you've got to tell us. Now, after Susanna Reid, the co-host, said, Meghan was talking about suicidal thoughts and mental health issues, Piers just couldn't believe it. He said, look, I'm sorry, I don't believe a word she says. Meghan Markle? No, I wouldn't believe her if she read me a weather report. And the fact that she's fired up this onslaught against our royal family, I think is contemptible. Well, what happened after that, when the real weatherman on the show kind of said, called him out and said, look, and that's when Piers walked off. Now, Piers has about 1.6 million followers on Instagram, and he tweets a lot. And basically, he's decided to just blow his own horn. He's gone out there and he's written this handwritten note. Now he's telling people to buy his book. So, but anyways, life goes on for him. Before Piers stormed off the ITV set of Good Morning Britain, which, by the way, he's been doing since 2014. And a lot of people have turned off that channel. They are losing a lot of viewers. He did bring on a mental health expert, in which it becomes clearer as to what he meant when he said he didn't believe a word that Meghan, says, because of the importance of the mental health issue in Harry's life due to his struggle to deal with his mom's sudden death in 1997 when he was 15 years old, and his brother William and Kate's support for such charities. That's what Piers found hard to believe. And expressing your opinion is plausible, but what happened after that was bizarre. Talk of free speech and falling on your sword, losing his third job for standing up for what he believes is right. Okay, so here's what Dr. Hillary had to say when they had him on Good Morning Britain. And again, this was last week before Piers walked off the show.
In this interview, Meghan Markle said that she had suicidal thoughts, felt very lonely in the palace, felt suicidal, and that she went to a senior member of the royal household and she told them about how she was feeling. And they told her she couldn't get any help because it would be a bad look. Now, when we talked about this yesterday, I said, as an all-encompassing thing, I don't believe what Meghan Markle is saying generally in this interview. And I still have serious concerns about the veracity of a lot of what she said. But let me just state for the record about my position on mental illness, right? And on suicide. On mental illness and suicide, these are clearly extremely serious things that should be taken extremely seriously. And if somebody is feeling that way, they should get the treatment and the help that they need every time. And if they belong to an institution like the royal family and they go and seek that help, they should absolutely be given it. And if it turns out Meghan Markle, and it's not for me to question whether she felt suicidal. I wasn't in her mind, and that's for her to say. My real concern was a disbelief, frankly, and I'm prepared to be proven wrong on this. And if I'm wrong, it is a scandal that she went to a senior member of the royal household, told them she was suicidal, and was told she could not have any help because it would be a bad look for the family. Yeah. If that is true, A, that person, if they're still there, should be fired, and B, the royal family have serious questions to be answered about how they handled it. But I would also throw in the mix that Prince Harry himself belongs to the top of several mental health charities. It does raise the question to me, he sought help himself, he's talked about that openly. Why could he not, in that eventuality, have gone and got Meghan the help that she needed, maybe via the charities that he represents?
Sure. Right, so I've been listening to everything that's gone on this morning, and what's clear, what I hear is how, once again, we're reminded how strong emotions can change perspectives on things, can blow things out of proportion. And the royal family, take away the fact that it's royal family, take away the fact that it's monarchy. This isn't a family. This is a family of grandparents, of parents, grandchildren, siblings, all of whom have gone through quite a lot of mental issues in the past. We have a man who lost his mother at a tender age in tragic circumstances and was raised by surrogate mothers who might not have had the skills to be as good as his own mother would have been. We've got a woman of mixed ethnicity who was previously married, who's expressed suicidal thoughts and can't apparently get the help that she needs. We've got grandparents who perhaps are distant because of the role that they play. We've got siblings who are at a different stage in the hierarchy and perhaps seen as more important. So other ordinary families can identify with all of these issues. They are no different. Just because they're royals, they're no different to anybody else.
Except that in this situation, she was told that it was an issue, that it would not be a good look. And that's a terrible
but
thing.
the royal family have.
The
royal family have
Is it
medical.
unfair? Look, I don't think it's unreasonable
that come to them.
Right.
They have there is a royal doctor. There's plenty of help available. I can't believe that she was stopped from going to see somebody who could counsel her, talk through her issues. And what's necessary...
When you say you can't believe it, you mean it is extraordinary that the family or the courtier stopped her doing it?
Well, you're assuming it happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to jump in, Hillary.
Because two people
can we use the word alleged?
Because two people who were damaged come together, it reinforces the problems. They support each other. They build a wall around themselves.
And here's how he ended it. This is very interesting.
Look, the message...
And actually what was needed was conciliation.
Yeah, but
I think Oprah was a really good interviewee because she listened. She gave them the opportunity to talk
Hillary,
without being judgmental.
The absolutely key thing, as you, as a medic, would agree, is that if someone is expressing those thoughts, you instantly access help.
Absolutely.
And do
you
not give reasons for not being able to get them help.
You never assume it's a cry for help.
No.
Or
no, absolutely. But I'm talking about within whoever this person was who said, because there were two reasons even, that it wouldn't be a good look and also that she wasn't a paid employee, that they couldn't help her. I mean, that doesn't matter, does it? Yeah. Anybody who expresses those thoughts must be given access to help immediately.
And you can only reconcile these problems through conciliation, through communication. And clearly there was an inability to communicate with the very people with whom they wanted to build bridges and make bonds.
So what happened next, we all know of the storming off and the resignation, and now the fate of Sharon Osbourne at CBS is up in the air with her show put on production hiatus pending an internal review after her emotional public exchange with her co-host over the issue of whether she was racist for supporting her friend Piers. Now, when I began the series exploring Oprah's interview with the former Sussexes, which CBS paid $7 million and aired on March 7, I stated it was important to see the story from the storyteller's view. I looked at the relationship of two women, Oprah and Meghan, and a couple, Meghan and Harry, who wanted to tell their side of the story. The point shouldn't be about whether it's true or she's lying or it's blown out of proportion because it's the royal family or it's unconscionable. It's about the other person's experience. And you have to consider their feelings. The mental health doctor interviewed by Piers on Good Morning Britain called it accurately. He knew they were injured parties in psychologist talk. They hurt inside. And I hope everyone could see that from Harry's loss of his mother. I mean, you've got to be able to see that. I don't know anyone that wouldn't. And of course, Meghan, her background, she comes from a divorced family as well. And she is a divorcee. And she's had other career struggles that she's faced in the acting industry. So it hasn't been easy for her either. And when people have worked so hard, they just want to be recognized. They want to be heard. And Oprah listened to them. She heard them. Oh, and by the way, for those of you that missed it, I'm going to put a link in my show notes because the the CBC News has actually posted the entire interview on their on YouTube, which, by the way, 20 million people have viewed it in 1 week. So if you did miss it and you want to watch it or rewatch it and think about it, I'll put a link in there so that you can look at it. Now, there is one other person that reacted, and I'm going to play you a clip of someone that made a prediction before Meghan married Prince Harry. And here's why his prediction went viral when he appeared last night. And here's what happened. Okay, this just happened from the Hollywood Reporter News. Here's what they reported about what happened with John Oliver when something that he said before Meghan married Harry went viral, and here's about his prediction.
His 2018 remarks about Meghan Markle's marriage into the royal family, which went viral in the wake of her and Prince Harry's bombshell CBS interview with Oprah Winfrey. The Last Week Tonight host comments went viral shortly after the interview aired for appearing to predict the troubles Markle would face within the royal family, saying at the time, "I don't think you need to have just seen the pilot episode of The Crown to get a basic sense that she might be marrying into a family that could cause her some emotional complications." Now, looking back at the viral moment during an appearance on The Tonight Show, Oliver said he concluded this from simply observing the royal family from a distance while he was growing up, saying,
"If they seem like flawed people, that's literally the kindest way I could possibly put it."
The host also called the CBS interview itself amazing, but again, not surprising.
I didn't find any of it surprising. That was kind of what I felt like, sadly, her experience was going to be going in.
Tonight Show host Jimmy Fallon then asked him if anything did shock him about the interview.
The only thing that shocked me afterwards was that Oprah the next day saying, "Oh, Prince Harry wants to make it clear that it wasn't Prince Philip being racist," which made me think, really?
This being in reference to one of the widely discussed claims from the couple during the March 7th interview, stating that there had been conversations and, quote, concerns in the royal family about the skin color of the couple's baby Archie before he was even born, a revelation that sparked a debate over racism in the royal family. Oliver concluded his remarks with a joke about Prince Andrew, who came under fire for his personal relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and who Oliver says is probably the only person relieved by this situation.
I'm guessing that he has been nudging the royal family. Can you believe what Meghan did, huh? Can you believe it? Dragging this family's name into disrepute, shaming us.
To watch the full clip, head to thr.com.
So that was 2018, John Oliver. Well, there was another woman that also made a prediction, and she was interviewed by Piers on Good Morning Britain about what she wrote in her column, telling Meghan not to marry Prince Harry. And here's what happened in this appearance 3 years ago. Okay, here's Piers.
Yasmin, you wrote a piece yesterday. I mean, talk about killing the mood.
This is like, we're all doomed. This marriage is never going to last.
You just
it's a
pick
complete
fights,
fiasco.
don't you?
I didn't write the piece.
I started
You
by
wrote the
saying
piece.
it started by saying I wish them all the joy, didn't I?
But then he went on to say,
and then
it's
I
not
said,
going to
"Get
work."
away, Meghan! Don't do it."
You said
Right.
this is not a dreamy fairy tale.
It's not.
Most crowns are made of thorns as well as diamonds.
Wow.
She cannot
Goodbye,
possibly understand what she's getting into. The Windsors are a cold and dysfunctional family.
I fear I do believe that.
Really?
I do believe that. I do believe that. I mean, look at the examples. Not just Diana, but even going back to Princess Margaret. I remember Princess Margaret when she had to sign her love away. It was a rainy day. I remember it very well. And she never really recovered, did she? Because she couldn't marry
That's
anybody.
true, she didn't.
Yeah?
But life has changed. The royals have changed. No, but
I
the
love
rule-
the boys. The boys it seem very normal to me. But why do they need a butler? But that's another question. I really think, especially if it seems she's not even going to carry on with her career, Princess Grace is not even to do necessarily with our royal family. It will be a nightmare because the official rules and regulations. I mean, even Kate. I'm not a royalist, but I do sort of look at these. At Kate, she had personality once. They've taken it away somewhere.
What do you want her to do? Do you get on the roof and start dancing?
I think Diana had it, and that's why Diana was so unwelcome.
Well, Diana was very, very popular, of course.
And she was
also,
bold, and
I
she
would
was
argue
rebellious.
Diana and her death in particular, I think, transformed this monarchy. It's a
Have you
humour.
read any of the books in which Diana described her
I've
life?
read a million things.
But do you not
published
even
a million
believe
things
what she
about it.
said? It was a huge tragedy what happened to that child.
Actually, I thought the tragedy for Diana was way before she ever met the royals.
Exactly.
The tragedy for Diana was her upbringing. She was a very damaged individual in
did
many
you
ways.
read what she said happened to her during the marriage?
No, you're missing my point. You're missing my point, which is this. Diana was a fragile, difficult,
Which is why she was
complicated
picked.
person before she ever came into the royal orbit, right?
So would she not have
from
needed
her own
tender care?
family upbringing?
It's very unfair. I agree. We've seen it happen in the past with royals, where there is immediate attention, and it is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But they do, when they go into the firm, if we call it that, when they go into it, they act and behave a certain way because it's royal etiquette, it's protocol. They have to do things
Actually,
a
by the way,
certain
this 24/7 thing, it's a load of baloney. She's been going out with Harry for a year. We've barely seen them in that time. And
Are
then
there changes now?
They've been going to stay at hotels like Soho Farmhouse. I know they spent a lot of time there. They've been to Africa. They've been all over the place without anyone seeing them.
For me, it's the issue is I remember all the words Diana said about what her life was like, even when she was a bulimic.
A very different climate.
No, I don't think so. The royal family, the Queen, the Duke of Edinburgh, even Fergie, whatever you think of her, right?
Not Fergie.
But why didn't that marriage last? They're clearly very fond of each other. If I'm wrong, I'll be so happy.
I think
This
the problem
works,
is
and she is able
the reason
to
I'm
be.
cynical about your view is I know that you're basically a Republican, so you don't agree with them at all.
But I've always cared. I really cared about Diana, although I was a Republican.
Yeah.
Because I really did.
But I never felt that Diana was the only person to blame in all that happened
She
around
was
that
not-
marriage.
she was
Charles
not-
is a decent guy. Camilla, by the way, Camilla is one of the nicest
He
people.
never dropped his mistress and marries this woman.
Well,
Sorry.
you talk
and then
about-
says,
you
he
talk
says
about
to his
people-
wife,
okay,
he
you
says to
talk
his
about
wife,
people
I'm not going to be the only king who doesn't have a mistress.
He was told
when they're
let me
getting
explain
married.
to you. Let me
I'm
explain to you.
sorry.
Right. He also was evicted. He was told he had to marry a 19-year-old
That's true.
virgin, right?
That's true.
He loved somebody else.
I know you want to hear the rest of this. I mean, it's terrible.
Right?
So why did he marry the
you
virgin?
You talked eloquently about Princess Margaret being thwarted from her true love, and yet when Charles ultimately
he
pursued
shouldn't have
his
done
true
it.
love, you don't like that either.
But
The truth is, Yasmin, you don't like any of the bit.
Yasmin's point is these are the rules of the firm.
These are the rules of the
They're
firm.
not anymore.
You can't
Who
love
said
They're not
within the
anymore.
rules.
Charles was allowed to, in the end, marry his true love.
Look,
right?
they took
People
her
may
woman.
not like it.
So I'm
He's allowed
astonished.
to marry his true
I'm
love.
astonished. You don't think it's at all important that a 19-year-old girl
Yeah.
was used in this way.
I do.
You should say so.
I do.
Because she
I do.
was,
I have
as
a
you
lot of
said,
sympathy-
damaged.
I have a lot of sympathy with Diana, but I also think that she was quite damaged from her own upbringing, nothing to do
So
with
they
the royals.
shouldn't have done this to her.
So the point of
Charles was not
Right.
a child.
But
He could have
William
said
and
no.
William and Harry are very different. to the old
I'm
style
sure they
royals.
are.
And luckily,
They wear their hearts on a sleeve.
They're going
They
into
talk
the
very
firm.
publicly
They're
about
going
their
into the firm.
emotions.
And
I think he's found a very good bride here, and I think your cynicism should be condemned to the dustbin
well,
of
you've
old
done that,
royal history.
and I'm telling you, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am.
I think Princess Diana would, if she was around today, she'd be very proud of them both, of what they've done, what they've achieved.
The public would see Diana in a very different way if they knew half the game she used to get up to. So let's not just paint her as the only person.
she was very, very young.
She was a child. It
Yeah.
was like a bad Bollywood tragedy.
Yeah.
This.
And luckily, Meghan,
A bad Bollywood
36,
tragedy.
You know,
36 years
full
old, and
arranged
fully grown
marriage,
up.
bad in-laws, faithless husband, bad Bollywood tragedy.
Yeah, but she wasn't an angel, Diana. She was
When
a very...
she got married,
I loved her, but she was no angel.
an innocent young woman
Yeah.
and damaged, and you can't
And
deny
I think that was
Sorry.
partly the problem.
Okay, Grant was about to speak.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, for me, it is very much with Meghan. She is 36 years old. She knows what she's
Been married
into.
before.
She obviously been married before. I mean, that shows you how modern the family's become, that obviously they can marry somebody that's divorced.
That's true.
And I mean, the thing about the two of them, as you mentioned, they've had time together, private time together. They obviously love each other, and that's what matters, I think, at the end of the day. As long as they're in love, let's all get behind it, let's support it.
I agree.
And looking forward to next May.
Get away, Meghan.
I think she'll be all right. I think
Get away.
Meghan strikes me as the sort of woman who's going to be,
Don't
just
listen
fine.
to Yasmin.
But I think, I think what you've got to say, it's very important. And obviously, it makes you still very passionate
Yeah, I think I went...
and emotional,
I
actually.
went to Kensington Palace as a Republican 3 times.
Why?
When Diana died, because I thought she was such an extraordinary woman.
She was, yeah.
And I hated what happened to her.
Yes.
I love Diana, but I just don't like the sainthood stuff with Diana was so misplaced. She wasn't a saint, and Charles was never the villain that he was portrayed
I'm sorry,
to be.
when
and
he
I
decided...
I really feel that quite strongly.
He should have either left his mistress or not married her.
Okay, Prince Harry is not his father. Meghan Markle is not Diana.
No.
Let's wish them the very best. Grant, Yasmin, thanks very much
three of us,
indeed.
4 of us will wish them the
No,
very best. One of us wants it
I
all to
wish
be-
them joy.
I know we packed a lot in this week on this episode of the Heart and Home podcast. That last clip was journalist Yasmin Alibhai-Brown with the former butler to Prince Harry, Grant Harold, that appeared on Piers's show before the royal wedding of Prince Harry to Meghan Markle. And I guess Yasmin had written a column the day before telling Meghan, get away, run away, don't do it, and predicting that it was going to be a terrible outcome for her. The reason why I'm bringing this up today is that there were people that predicted this, and those people are not surprised today. Now, we all buy into the fairy tale, just as we did with Princess Grace, Princess Diana, every royal wedding. Of course, we all grew up watching Disney and Cinderella, but these aren't movies, okay? This has turned into a soap opera, and that's what we have. We have a play-by-play of what happens in the royal family soap opera. So anything that happens, they're going to cover. That's what constitutes news. Just like in this country, automatically there's a hierarchy, a pecking order of if the president says anything, and that's why we had so much coverage. That's why Donald Trump knew how to monopolize the airwaves. He got more coverage than any other president and any other story. I mean, I'm looking at this in my book, Interruptive Journalism, in the coverage and the language that was used, but that's a whole nother topic. News, royal family is news, number one, just as we cover the president in this country. Fires, I've told you before, the adage, if it bleeds, it leads. you might not know what constitutes news, but a person in the business knows automatically, oh my God, this is news. This is new. They're always spinning, trying to put a new angle on things. And even Gail, when she announced that she spoke with Prince Harry over the weekend, that whole interview happened at her home. Oprah never said it. She said we were at a friend's home, but that interview was conducted at Gail King's home. So she's friends. She also has a home there. And I know I've heard a lot of people saying they were talking about the chairs that they were sitting in, and I guess the chairs sold out. Well, I'm not going to cover that because that's just not news to me, but to somebody else, it's a big deal. Anyways, when Gail was talking about her speaking with Harry over the weekend, she slipped and said, well, I don't want to make news. Well, of course you do. That's what everybody does in the business. They want to be the first to break something. Yes, everybody wants to make news. In honor of St. Patrick's Day, we close with an excerpt from the song You'll Never Walk Alone, performed by Celtic Woman. A link is included in the show notes if you'd like to hear the entire song. Have a great day. We'll be back with more on this.